This is our second cyber seminar for the CZOData project in the winter of 2015. The first one was in mid-January, where we gave an update of where we were at with the project and described our major deliverables and progress. And it was meant to kind of begin more interaction with CZO PIs about what the timeline was for CZO products. And we were asked to develop from that a progress report.
Yep, hear you fine. Not for me.
Connect to another recording service, recording. All right, great. All right, well, welcome everybody. As I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a repeat of the presentation I made at the CZO All Hands meeting. It was mostly geared toward data producers and NSF. So some of this may be a little repeat for the data managers. Maybe
I can still hear you fine.
It's all fine. All right. Huh. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. That was a different person. Jennifer, Williams, I'm going to mute you also because there's feedback coming from your audio. So we have, as I was saying, we've organized our major, sorry, I'm a little distracted by some of the chats that are coming through. All right, I think I can see everything now. We've organized our major deliverables our tasks around these major deliverables, and we're going to go through each of these and describe what we've done. So we've grouped them by engagement and support, which kind of had two of the tasks that were in the original proposal addendum: the criticalzone.org website, search.criticalzone.org, viz.criticalzone.org, CZChemDB online, control vocabularies, CZO display file 2, and publication tools, IGSNs for CZO, and then LiDAR and geospatial data. So with that, I'm actually going to end this PowerPoint because I'm going to go more to the report and to the website. So if I should probably start with criticalzone.org to let everyone navigate to where we're at. So under the criticalzone.org data pages, there are links to a bunch of information about how to get CZO data, how to submit it, et cetera. And these we're populating right now with more and more details as these various systems are rolling out. But one of the things that we created was a new web page that aggregates all of our information about cyber seminars. And on that page, we've listed all of our previous cyber seminars, including the update we gave in January. And if you click on those, you'll see that we have loaded up embedded YouTube videos of the recordings from those cyber seminars. So those are right there. And we're going to put our upcoming seminars on this main page. And you can see that next week we have a cyber seminar where we're going to demo some of these products, and that WebEx information will be there. And once the cyber seminar is presented, we will replace that with the YouTube video. So the other thing that we've done is that we have listed all of our various projects and reports, including our annual reports and this deliverables report, on the CZO publications, reports, and proposals tab. So that's where I'm at right here for national. You can see our original CZO proposal is here, and all the files associated with them, the entire full proposal, the proposal addendum where we actually give more details about our 13 tasks, and the supplement that we received a year later for website development. All of that is listed, and we've tried to connect the various reports so you can also read our progress reports that we submitted to NSF with an abstract, and then the full text of the progress report is listed. Okay, so I'm getting feedback from somebody here who is the latest transgressor. All right, I don't see who's got the feedback on. If you're not muted, please mute yourself. So all of you have now access to this deliverables report. I emailed it out to the group, but it's a public document now, and you can download it here. So that's what I'm going to go through. That report describes a little bit of background, but really has all these hyperlinks in it to the original proposal, to the proposal addendum that listed these 13 tasks and how we originally structured things. So it's just a completely hyperlinked document, which I think is going to make it much easier for people to follow and where we're at. This portion of the report is designed to be quite a bit like a table of contents. So you can click on any one of these sections and immediately jump down to the first section. At the top, I've got a little bit of an introduction. We've built a little bit of an introduction about the Observations Data Model 2, or ODM2. As we've explained repeatedly over time, this sister project to CZOData has provided an enormous opportunity for us to develop software and tools around this new data model, which will allow very which has the potential to allow seamless interoperability between a whole pile of different data sets, and that potential is just beginning to be realized, and we continue to be very excited about it, and so does the rest of the community, for the cyber infrastructure community. So, do I have any questions yet, or should I keep them to the end? I want to kind of keep this short, but I wanted to really point out where we have resources so that people can either follow along on the side, so we can really have this be a dialogue and not just a presentation as we move forward. So let's see, I don't have my chat box open. People can chat, I've got that, I've got a view of that, and you can unmute yourself and pipe in with a question anytime. So for community engagement and support, we described that we'd create an information management committee. A lot of people who are on this call are members of that, and that it consists of both data managers and investigators. The investigator participants, we have some really solid ones, like Cliff Reeby, who's on the phone right now, who's been part of the effort from the very beginning. But we are going to be asking PIs to renominate for this coming year the investigator faculty level members of the Information Management Committee and really charge them with being very connected with us in this last year. We're going to talk about how we formed the committee, we've had a number of meetings, and we've delivered on what we said we would do, but really we do have some remaining funds, and we want to really put it into strong community engagement, especially with the Information Management Committee in this next year. What I failed to mention, but you might have noticed, is that, sorry that I'm scrolling to the very top, is that we have requested and received a no-cost extension to March 31st, 2016. And to date, when we do a full assessment of where we are in deliverables, we've delivered about somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of the deliverables. A pile of those are going to get completed in the next couple of months. Some of them will be delayed till summertime or fall time. But what we will mostly be doing all the way out to March 31st, 2016 is community engagement. So I'm going to use this hyperlink to go back to here. So we're going to be asking PIs to renominate people to the Information Management Committee. We were tasked with doing web-based information events and workshops. Again, this whole document describes, has a structure, and you're going to see this repeated pattern of what we proposed, what was proposed in 2011. If we changed the scope due to any unforeseen opportunities or changes in the needs of the network. And we, at the beginning, in the introduction to this report, we describe some of what those are, and often we describe them when there is a change, and then the progress to date. So we've had quite a number of cyber seminars. A lot of them had to do with getting the CZO website built. That's what this is about, criticalzone.org content management system, and then trying to provide basic information about the goals of our project in the spring. And then this fall, we've continued those, and we'll continue those all the way through to the end of the project year. In the original proposal, we had proposed synthesis working groups to take the products of the integration and try to do some science with them. And when the CZOs were expanded to 10 CZOs, and with the advent of EarthCube, we realized that we really needed to change the scope of this project to not have 7 workshops funded, but rather a smaller number of workshops so that more people could come, and also so that we wouldn't burn out both the project team and attendees, because EarthCube was in the process of funding an enormous number of workshops also. So we actually eliminated 2 synthesis workshops from the scope of this project, and that was in agreement with Enriqueta Barrera. So that was a big change in scope. But we did also have 3 subdiscipline workshops, and they were originally specified, or at least suggested, that we'd have one around geochemistry, GIS, hydrological data management. Because we had also the EarthCube workshops and the ODM2 workshops, we had quite a few of those. We delayed on having these until things were solidified a bit more. We had our first subdisciplinary workshop where we actually combined both geochemistry and hydrological data management to discuss the new CZO display file version 2 template, and that workshop was held this winter, and you can click on that link to find out what we learned there. And next week we'll be demoing some of the products that came out of that workshop, where we defined the CZO display files. We also originally proposed support for site information managers, or CZO data managers, which is what we now call them, where we would do site visits to all the CZOs to kind of help out with local data management and help with integration. When the 10 CZOs were funded, we realized that we just did not have enough travel funds to go to all 10 CZOs. So, and also trying to stretch out the funding because of other changes in scope, we eliminated these site visits from the scope of the project. And with a focus instead on trying to maybe interact with CZO data managers via WebEx. And I think one of the things that we are interested in potentially doing is trying to do some of this support via WebEx, maybe one-on-one, one CZO at a time. Maybe we can have, a special 1 or 2 hour working meeting with each of the CZOs individually via WebEx, and to kind of answer specific questions, because we realize that these larger forums, when there's 20, 30 people online, it aren't always the best forum for asking questions or bringing up specific issues. And so we would like to roll these out after our focus on products we'd like to consider this as a possibility after our focus on products is complete. We also said we'd have workshops for these site information managers, or CZO data managers. These basically became our IMC workshops, and we had 2 of them, which is what was proposed. We had, whoops, I mistyped here. So the second IMC workshop was held in 2014, and the first one at the end of 2012. So this is completed as proposed, but we do have some unexpended participant support costs that we are very much interested in allocating to additional IMC workshops. We are thinking strongly about having another one in May, and we have some dates that we'd like to propose to you all. And then potentially, if there's remaining funds, having another one next winter. So have it with 9-month spacing to do, because I think the previous IMC workshops were really super productive. Everyone shared a little bit about what they were doing, people got to know each other, and there was a lot of time for interaction. So we'd like to hear from all of you if that seems like a good choice of how to use our unexpended participant support costs. We also proposed having biweekly virtual teleconferences or WebExes with the CZO data managers, or the proposal language was with the site information managers. And we have done that on and off, sometimes incredibly actively, specifically around developing criticalzone.org, and then afterwards the criticalzone.org websites. We talked about sharing files. There was something at San Diego that San Diego had developed earlier on. This was mostly about, there's lots of ways to share files, and since then, even though the change in scope, which was really minimal here, has been eliminated, we did change our approach over time. So we can share on criticalozone.org public documents with the public. We also have a CZO IMC Google Drive directory for sharing things. And we still have this password-protected central.criticalzone.org place, but frankly, I don't think anyone's using it anymore because the public and criticalzone.org file posting and the private CZOData IMC Google Drive is really sufficient for that. All right, I really should be moving along quicker. Criticalzone.org website, we developed. Essentially, all of this is complete as of now. I'm not going to go into the details. We did get a supplement to expand, to add new features to the website that weren't originally proposed, such as creating data and dataset pages, and also creating, adding 4 new CZOs and redeveloping the website. So those are supplemental tasks that weren't originally proposed, but we added them here. We do realize that there's a lot of content to be put on the CZO criticalzone.org website, and we've made a lot of effort with the original CZOs to try and get them going and up to speed and trained. There is a YouTube channel for that, and with kind of private YouTube videos about how to do that. But we do realize that the 4 new CZOs still probably need assistance with that. So we're open to that. However, one of the things that should be known is that really since mid-2014, any non-data content on criticalzone.org is no longer the responsibility of the CZOData project. It is the responsibility of the CZO National Office. David Lubinsky still has a subcontract with the National Office, so he is still overseeing the website, but it's no longer really under my supervision. It's under Lou Derry and Tim White's supervision. If it has criticalzone.org/data, then it's under our purview of the CZOData project. So we said we'd create this content management system for criticalzone.org and integrate it with the data discovery portal. We have done an enormous amount of that integration already via the ISO 19115 metadata standard. And as you all know, CZO display files, criticalzone.org data sets are now being exported to the search.criticalzone.org catalog via this standard, and it's all happening underneath the hood. So we're really quite excited about that. That was an idea that we came up with back in the December 2012 IMC meeting, and it was it took us about a year to really get the data set pages ironed out, and then in 2014, mid-2014, early to mid-2014, we completed the integration for the automated export into the data catalog. So search.criticalzone.org had a number of tasks associated with it, creating this metadata catalog, and I just touched base on that. These subtasks that are lettered describe how we have done things, and I just mentioned that registering all sorts of data sets in search.criticalzone.org or the CZO catalog is now all happening via these data set pages in ISO 19115 metadata standards. So that was completed, I think, completely done by in November of this year. We are also developing web services for sharing the data. The CZO Data Search Portal, search.criticalzone.org, has a number of web services associated with sharing documents. So anything that is posted on the criticalzone.org website as a data set gets cataloged and then is searchable with a web service application programming interface. So that's in place. In addition, AIDA's System for Sample Registration has been developing web services around the ODM2 data model, and that's been quite a bit of activity this winter. These have been developed, and we can give demos of how that is useful next week. We're really quite excited about that. So we're already beginning to have integration between AIDA and with web services, and my understanding is that AIDA will be building a whole bunch of additional web services over the next year or so as they are rebuilding their cyber infrastructure around ODM2 and other technologies. So a lot of those are outside of the scope of this project and are really under AIDA's other funding. So enhancing the CZOData catalog, this is where we describe kind of what works underneath the hood for search.criticalzone.org. That's also been completed. Developing code to register and download display files. So we did a pile of this for display file version 1, and those continue to be maintained. As you all know, and this is jumping ahead, the CZO display file version 2 specification was put on hold for us to really develop ODM2 and get some other things taken care of. We are well on the way to having a very solid CZO display file version 2 specification, and we'll be demoing that next week. And there are harvesters and validators for that we're already working on and are showing a lot of exciting progress, and those will be completed by the end of the spring or the early summer. But we will obviously, I think this spring, we will begin to ask all of the CZOData managers to be beta testers of our this new display file specification. So that's why we're expecting to be refining things as you all help test out the how our harvesters and validators work. But for those of you who remember the discussion back in May at the IMC meeting, there are lots of reasons why the display file version 1 harvesters didn't work so well. The ones for display file version 2 are all built on open libraries, and they're very powerful right out of the box, and so we're quite excited about it. Enhanced CZOData online registration, we've kind of already described what we've done for phase 2 via the data listings at criticalzone.org and how it's integrated with the search portal. This one might not mean anything to many of you, but there is a big data network called Data One, and we promised way back in 2011 that we would connect as a Data One member node interface. And that was when some discussions were beginning to happen between Data One and Quasi. Well, it turns out those conversations are still happening, and there have been some fundamental challenges to integrating Quasi-type time series resources into Data One, which is mostly a biological, it's a network of biological data repositories. And so for all the reasons listed here, which I'm not going to really go into, we cannot yet make CZOData a member node. And in fact, we probably won't directly make it a member node, but we'll try to help promote our partners to become member nodes, essentially Quasi and AIDA. But that's a little bit outside of our control, so we're hoping that might happen by the end of 2015. But it's only something that we can encourage. We can't actually make it happen ourselves. Central repository of time series and point data. So there's a bunch of subtasks for this, and one is to help you all get data sets into the criticalzone.org data system. So we've discussed the various efforts that we've done, some of which I've already described. This is just kind of a summary. There is a Hydra server database that is set up for each of the CZOs, and in early 2014, we set them up for the 4 new CZOs. So we've got 10 Hydra servers in the background that are harvesting CZO display files and other time series data, and then exposing those time series data via quasi-web services. When the new CZO display file specification comes up, we're expecting a whole pile of new data to be pulled into those. So we'll be continuing to work on that, but really a lot has been accomplished under the hood, and with the new display file specification, I think the results of that will be quite evident. Archiving and versioning system, we've basically done what's necessary there. Hardware and software central data repository, same thing, done what's necessary. Data availability via a user interface. So this is essentially what we've done to create metadata services that allow all the different data that we have to be exposed to any user interface that someone puts up. So the UI is probably the wrong term here. So this is really any service interfaces. So I think that the title is kind of not really consistent with the rest of this language. So this is really all about web services and trying to move our data into the various web services. Well, we've primarily completed that. We are in conversation with the Open Geospatial Consortium, OGC, about essentially getting additional concepts that we have from ODM2 and some of the other work that we've done into their latest web services. All right, I'm flying along here. Do we have any questions yet? Do we have a list of people on the IMC anywhere? Yes. So we have a Google group, and I'm nearly certain that the Google group, there's a link on the website, but this is the fastest way that I can get to it. So we have a Google group called the CZO Information Management Committee, CZO Data Information Management Committee, and if you find that Google group and click on members, you can see the listing of all the members. So the Google group serves as both a email listserv, and all the emails that are sent to that Google group are archived here, including the one that I sent this morning. And that goes all the way back to 2012 when we developed it. And it's also a nice way to see all the different team members. And somewhere on the CZO website, we have a link to that. My guess is that it might be underneath here. The IMC members, I have to look for that. Information Management Committee. So there's some information about the Information Management Committee and IMC group forum. We could probably elevate these links so that they're easier to find. Okay. Any other questions? Viz, you are all going to get an awesome demo next week. The team at the University of Washington, led by Emilio Mayorga, has been working really hard on this viz.criticalism.org. If you go to this web URL, you can see a lot of what they've been working on. They have some stuff under the hood. They have some stuff kind of in a hidden development server that they usually don't share with the public right away, and all of that. So there's additional features that they're actively working on that will be ready for next week's demo. But you can jump ahead and check all that out. So they've done a lot of framework level development to create to modify the visualization system, which they call Visor. So it's it was renamed the Visor framework. from the Nanus visualization system to Visor. They've done a lot of work under the hood to really enhance what they can visualize. So this describes that effort. And in this particular case, it was about time series handling. And you can see here that most of what they propose is being very actively worked on, but it's going to be completed within the next month. So they've developed this time series handling capabilities with a time slider, which is really quite slick from what I've seen. Demo next week, next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. They've already connected. They've been working really hard to take the input from each of you data managers to create these little applications where people can look for the time series data and via the visualization system. So anything that's in there as a time series, as a CZO display file is visible, and we understand that that hasn't been massively populated to date because we've been asking everyone to hold for display file version 2. But the system is developed, so as you populate them this spring, when we really open up the doors to using CZO display file 2 with the validators in place, those will come online. So that's what's described here. So there's additional work about basically integrating integration between Visor and San Diego supercomputing system, and then also cross CZO search, which is all happening. I think I'm gonna probably move quickly. I think I'm gonna move quickly through this because Emilio has a lot more to say about this than I can add. And then, of course, incorporating feedback from site information managers or the data managers. At the IMC meeting in May of 2014, we got quite a bit of input, and that input is being implemented here. So this is the listing of what that input was. We're actually looking to potentially shift some money around within remaining money that's in the project to continue the enhancement of some of these the visualization system. It seems to be what a lot of you are very excited about. So we're open to continuing receiving your feedback about what you might want to see within the visualization system. CZChemDB Online. So we said we'd build a web-based user interface for CZChemDB, and it had a number of steps associated with it. The first one was to transfer CZChemDB to a new relational database management system, in this case PostgreSQL, and a Linux Apache web server system. That was done quite a while ago, more than a year ago. Then we said we would develop specifications for the CZChemDB user interface. AIDA, as I mentioned earlier, it has been building a new cyber infrastructure around ODM2 and some of the concepts in ODM2. And that work has been really in very active development since very early in 2014, and that's going to continue throughout 2015. In that process, they have contracted with a group called Exaptive that does some really slick visualizations. And I'm sure that we will want to schedule a cyber seminar in the next month or two for a demo of what's going on there. So in that effort, the AIDA team has developed a bunch of user interface specifications that are going to really allow them to create a new user interface for EarthChem2, and that's directly going to feed CZChemDB. So they've kind of done that first round of development without necessarily a whole lot of input from the CZO community, but as the spring rolls on and into the summer, we will want to hear from you about what you think. So that will be something to look forward to. So this is what we said about integrating CZChemDB into the EarthChem data system. We said we would convert CZChemDB into XML. We didn't really do it exactly that way. We changed the scope in terms of the mechanics, but what we did was essentially go from Microsoft Access to PostgreSQL through and get the whole original CZChemDB in PostgreSQL. But what we also did is that we then went from there and mapped it to an ODM2 version in PostgreSQL of CZChemDB, and that's also been completed. And then this is where we basically say we'd have web services around CZChemDB in EarthChem, and that's really what's going to be delayed because EarthChem itself is being rebuilt from the ground up, all around ODM2 based infrastructure. So I don't know exactly what the AIDA team is calling it, if they're going to actually rename it, but for this report, I kind of put in EarthChem 2 just to kind of distinguish that there's really a major revision going on under the hood at EarthChem. For controlled vocabularies, we said we would create a controlled vocabulary system for to meet the needs of the CZOData community. So one of the major changes in scope was that we realized that the control vocabulary system that existed that was really built off of the Quasi's control vocabulary was somewhat broken. The vocabularies themselves are broken, and there's actually been a lot of work by Quasi itself to rebuild their whole control vocabulary. And Rick Hooper at Quasi actually got an NSF grant to kind of remap their ontologies. And at the end of that process, they realized that the ODM2 approach to control vocabularies was a really excellent future approach. And so they kind of asked us to take this ODM2 vocabulary idea that we have and implement it. That was in April of 2014. Implement it, and they were going to really strongly be looking at it as the new Quasi control vocabulary system. So we took that as a really positive sign and basically decided to base the entire new shared vocabulary system for CZOs on ODM2 vocabularies. And so that's what's described here. So so this is, and I think we all discussed this with you in May 2014, and what we did at that time was that we decommissioned the prototype shared vocabulary system for CZOs. We actually took it down, merged all the terms with Quasi, and since then there's really only one shared vocabulary system, and that's the one at Quasi, and that one will always be supported. It's the existing Quasi one where we remerge terms from that CZO, so there's no divergence there between CZO and Quasi vocabularies. And all those old terms we are going to map to the new terms. We're in the process of doing that. So this describes all of that work. You're going to get a demo of that because there's actually been a really impressive amount of work. The main exciting thing is that there's now a new system called vocabulary.odm2.org with web services around these new vocabularies. You can all go to it right now. It's not quite fully complete, but it's complete enough that you can get a really good flavor of how it works. What's exciting is that it's both human browsable, so you can just go look for a term list, but it also works on all the kind of machine-to-machine language systems, which frankly had all the previous systems that both Quasi's and the CZO shared vocabulary system and AIDA systems didn't have all the machine-to-machine vocabulary exchange protocols fully in place, and now they are, or they will be in this system. So we're really quite excited about that. We would demo that to you next week. As we say here, the initial release will be next week, but there's a lot there already. So mapping of variables to common ontology. We have already begun quite a bit of this work and spent a lot of time on this. However, to really fully flesh this out, we're going to need your help. I think we mentioned this in the May 2014 IMC meeting, and the new systems that we have in place now will help us do that, but we're going to need continued help. One of the nice things about vocabulary.odm2.org is that, to our knowledge, it's the only system that both has all the machine-to-machine web services like SCOS and RDF and terms that I barely understand myself, XML representations, an endpoint for every term, a URI endpoint for every term, et cetera. But it also has a community-based system in which people can submit changes, request changes or additions to the vocabulary. We're not aware of any vocabulary system that has both of those capabilities. The old Quasi system had the community capabilities, and some of the other systems that are out there by NOAA and the Oceanographic community have the other machine-to-machine capabilities, but not the community capabilities. So we're excited about that. And that's going to allow us to have you help us with kind of refining the mappings. SCOS system. What does SCOS stand for? Simple Knowledge Organization System. It's a type of the machine-to-machine protocol for communicating control vocabularies, and that's built into this new system that we just talked about. Okay. EarthChem is also working on updating their vocabularies. It was listed underneath a separate task in the original proposal because it was, like I said, the original tasks were wrapped around who did what, not so much what the deliverables would be. So we have done an enormous amount of work integrating EarthChem vocabularies into the ODM2 control vocabularies. It's been a huge focus of ours really since the May 2014 IMC meeting, this control vocabulary work. And I think you will find that we basically selected the best of the vocabulary terms from EarthChem and the best of the vocabulary terms from Quasi and merged the two together for a lot of the lists. Not all of them. Variables is one that's really the most challenging, but for a lot of the other things like site types, et cetera, we did that work. So we feel relatively confident that where vocabularies overlap between AIDA EarthChem vocabularies and Quasi vocabularies, that we have done a very, very nice integration into the ODM2 vocabularies, and we will be demoing that next week. CZO display file version 2. We said that we would extend the CZO display file format for geochemical data and also for spatial data. And what else did we say? I guess that was the main thing that we would do. Well, what we realized, as you've probably heard over and over again, is that the display file version 1 didn't even work all that well for hydrological data. There were a bunch of issues. And so the actual title and proposed scope we didn't really change, but the approach is really quite different than what we had originally envisioned. And that is that we have basically decided that the CZO display file version 2 format is an exchange and archival format for ODM2. And because ODM2 is meant for interoperability, it can handle all these different data types, including time series, much better than the original display file version 1. There was a bunch of other requirements that we tried to meet, and we had a workshop, a 2.5-day meeting in February 2015 where we really hammered on the specifics of this, and a pile of you on the phone right now, Jennifer Williams, Dan Arthur, and others, spacing a little bit, were there to help us out. So it was really great to get input from some of you data managers, and Miguel was there, and Sue Parsons was there, and a few others. So so we have done that. I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. It's not written explicitly in this report because I didn't want to confuse things, but we've actually are going to because this format is really all about ODM2, we have changed the name of it, and we are kind of deprecating the name CZO display file because it's really not very useful. And we are calling these the YODA file format for YAML observation data archival format. YAML observation data archival format. YAML is a syntax kind of like JavaScript object notation, but it's actually more powerful. So we'll discuss that later. So it works for geochemistry data just as well as time series data. Spatial data it can handle, but what we describe here is that it's not really the best. None of these are really the best way to display spatial data. It's better to use native file formats like shape files, and we describe that we can load those up to the criticals.org content management system, and then extend and share that as ISO 19115 metadata formats, which we are doing. So that's completed. We also said that we'd create data and metadata publication tools and templates that we would help develop display file tools for time series and geochemistry data, et cetera. And this is all around this display file version 2, or actually the YODA file format, which is what we're now calling it. And these data loading templates are taking the form of Microsoft Excel files where you fill them out, a lot like the CZChemDB templates. You fill out the forms, and what's interesting is that a lot of the heavy lifting is actually being done within the Excel file itself. We are going to demo that next week. What I mean to say is that you basically fill out this form, click on a button, and a YODA file or CZO display file 2 is actually written into the final tab, and you can just cut and paste that into a text editor, and suddenly you have a YAML file. These Excel data loading templates are not one size fits all. There will be a different template for different data use cases. The YODA file format or the display file format is super flexible. It's so flexible that there's really no way to create a nice form that works for all of that flexibility. So you'll download, let's say, the time series format. You'll download the sample measurement format if you have soil geochemistry data, and fill out the template, and it will produce all legitimate YODA files, but they will, but the forms will look slightly different, and because the data, of course, is slightly different in those different cases. And we kind of describe how spatial data really requires a different approach. IGSNs for CZOs. All right. So first task is that to develop specification for CZO object types. We have done quite a bit of work on this with all of you and others, and we've gotten some of your inputs into the CSAR system itself. CSAR stands for System for Earth Sample Registration. That is the registration agent that EarthChem has basically developed, or IETA has developed, within the International Geosample Number community or framework, which is an international one. So their allocation agent is called CSAR, and the CZOs are going to use CSAR, and they're modifying CSAR to be flexible enough to handle CZOs. And so a lot of the requests that they've heard have been incorporated into CSAR. So this is where we changed the scope a bit. We said early on that we'd create our own registration agent for CZOs, and that doesn't really make sense, because it really makes more sense to use the existing CSAR allocation agent. And really, since the proposal was written in 2011, a lot has changed with respect to IGSNs. There's actually now an international organization, and what the definition of a registration agent is really different now than it was back then. So that's part of why we changed the scope. A lot of that is being developed right now at AIDA, and we will complete that sometime in the summer of 2015. We are at the very last grouping, and this one's easy because we completed this back in 2012, and that is a system for sharing LiDAR data. The short story is that we partnered with Open Topography. We developed a memorandum of understanding that allows any CZO to send their LiDAR data sets to Open Topography, where that data set will be archived and a whole pile of web services are built around that LiDAR, all developed by Open Topography, which is an NSF-supported data repository specifically for LiDAR data. So it's beautiful, it works well. The last step, so all that data got, the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, was signed in 2011. By the end of 2012, all the CZOs had shared their data with OpenTopo, and once we rebuilt the CZO data search portal, we were allowed to actually search Open Topography catalogs through our search portal because they're federated using Open Geospatial Consortium, or OGC, catalog service for the web interfaces. So that works super well. And then, as we mentioned before, we've developed the ability within the CZO catalog to manage spatial data separately. And we've discussed that already multiple times. So that's a run-through of every single one of the tasks, where we're at, progress to date, and the expected delivery. So I don't see any additional questions in the chat. And it looks like most of the people are still on the line. I'm going to open this to questions, and either via chat or people can unmute themselves and ask away, and let me know what you think, or if you have any questions. Nothing yet? That was a lot to go through. Hopefully all of you have downloaded the report and can look at it. Any more thoughts, questions? I'm going to ask you all of a question then. What is the level of enthusiasm amongst all of you for another IMC meeting sometime in mid-May? We've identified 2 weeks that our team could have the meeting, and we're thinking about having the meeting in San Diego this time instead of on the East Coast to kind of help the West Coasters out, since we've done a bunch of things here in the East Coast. Oh, I've got one, before I hear the response, I have one question about the demo next week. Yes, so if you go to criticalzone.org, data, cyber seminars, you will see our schedule for upcoming seminars, and the demo demonstration for three of our new products is next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And here's the WebEx information, and we'll be demoing the visualization portal, the control vocabulary system, and the new CZO display file, or YODA file, along with templates. All right. Anything else? I got some private chat box traffic saying that people are enthusiastic about another meeting. Any other thoughts? The weeks that we have identified, and we'll put these in also in the calendar. The weeks that we have identified are, if you can all see this, are the week of May 11th or the week of May 18th. Those are the only 2 weeks that are free. There is the CZO PI meeting on the 4th, 5th, and 6th at Calhoun. No, I'm sorry, at IML. Sorry, I got that mixed up. So CZO PIs are all going to be at that. And then there's the EarthCube All Hands meeting the week of the 25th. So that's a little bit constrained. So we were thinking about sometime the week of the 11th or the 18th. So again, we'd record things and let people know. If there's really poor availability for those weeks, we could always look into June, but things seem to get a little crazier once field season really gets underway. So get some questions, some private chat about, would I be invited, et cetera. What we'd like to do is have everybody, all the data managers, all the web managers, and then also the faculty level IMC representatives from each of the CZOs. So this would be a big meeting. We did not have full representation at the faculty level from all the CZOs back in May, so hopefully we get all those folks in. And again, this would probably be out in San Diego. Any other questions? No one's piping in with a voice. Or sharing any of these questions publicly. They're all coming to me privately. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I encourage all of you to really use this CZOData IMC Google group to throw out questions and thoughts and other things to our group, either to the project team. If you have any questions about anything, you might as well send them out to the IMC Google group, because chances are that others would benefit from the answer that we might provide. And anybody who's a member of this group can send an email to the entire group, and it could provide a nice resource. And also we want to encourage each of you data managers and also investigators to interact with each other. It may be that we don't have the answer, but somebody else at another CZO has figured out how to do the thing that you're doing, and they might be able to provide you an answer more quickly than we can, or one that's more relevant. All right. I'm not hearing anything, so I think I'm ready to hang it up. Thank you all for attending, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, Anthony.
You're welcome.